This is Polyamory Weekly, tales from the front of responsible non-monogamy from a pansexual, kink-friendly point of view. A warning for our under-18 listeners. This is an adult-oriented podcast about really lascivious things, like communication and honesty in relationships. If you're under 18 and looking for upfront advice and answers to questions about sex, please visit scarletteen.com.
This is Polyamory Weekly, episode 513 for April 13th-ish, 2017. Coming up on today's show, does dating poly make me poly? It's coming up on today's show. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Minx, and sitting in the co-host chair today is...
Lusty Guy, your co-host and audio engineer with the mostest.
We have been trying out new audio setups and failing for the last year.
Yes.
It's been a year.
Yeah.
I think we finally got the audio board to work.
Vaguely. Although if we have any audio engineers out there who can tell me why the USB out does not match the analog out on a Yamaha mixing board, I would be thankful.
And now we've got fans fast forwarding.
Yeah.
Hit that fast forward button.
Get me to the poly.
Well, we have an interesting topic today. I think they're always interesting. I don't think I would put it in here if it weren't interesting.
No, we don't have the special boring episode. We should do that someday.
We could do a boring episode where you just, we talk people to sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Minx and Lusty Guy lull you to sleep reading the financial reports.
Ooh, or the dictionary. Actually, the dictionary I think is interesting, so maybe not. Financial reports, yeah.
There are people who think the financial reports are interesting.
That's true.
Maybe the phone book.
Well, we actually have a topic for our host chat section that is not the financial reports.
Nor the phone book.
Nor the phone book, nor the dictionary. We were at RelateCon a few weeks ago, and this is the first chance I've had to get you back in the co-host chair, busy boy.
I know. I've been pushing all the buttons behind the scene.
So that we could talk about how much fun we had at RelateCon.
And we did. We had a lot of fun at RelateCon.
Yeah. It was in Boise, Idaho. It's a first-year poly conference, and those tend to be, pretty bumpy. A first-year con is very difficult to pull off, but it was a first-year con that felt like a 5-year con. It was really incredibly well run.
Very well ran, very fun, great people. I actually found great value in content in other sessions, which isn't always true for me because I am a grumpy old man.
You're a snob.
I am a snob and a cynic and grumpy. And I found tremendous value in other sessions. And I also really found value in being in Idaho, kind of one of the places where I grew up, and being able to say to people, yeah, you know where Pocatello is. And everybody's like, yeah, I know where Pocatello is. And it was really interesting for me.
Oh, fun. Excellent. Well, I had a great time too. They had us booked pretty heavily.
We were running.
Yeah, we were teaching 2 hour and 15-minute classes a day. So we were performing, 3 hours a day, which is a lot, but it was also really fun. Like, we got such great reception to our content. One of the classes we had just revamped because we'd only taught it 1 or 2 times before, and we had some really valuable input about how to improve it. The Poly Dating 101 class in particular was the new version, and I thought it went over really well. I think it's the best version of that class that we've ever taught.
It did go over really well, and I thought fixing things when they break went over really well, and was, again, something that we had revamped. We are always tweaking things based on the feedback and how things go and what people tell us in classes. And so both of those classes were kind of new look versions that rolled out, and it rolled out pretty well.
Yeah, I thought they did go over really well. And there's some crossover content definitely in the classes, and we did see familiar faces from one class to another, but we had a couple of people that sat in on all 4 classes, and I'm like, really, geez, aren't you bored of us yet? But it was fun. We got to meet some great people. The conference center where it was hosted actually had this great fireplace foyer. There were all these conference rooms that were right around this fireplace foyer, and that's where the bar was in the evenings. But I really love that we actually just pulled some chairs up by the fireplace and ended up having this sort of fireside chat where people kind of came in and out, and we had these great discussions. And to me, those sort of hallway moments or fireside moments, those are those are the best parts of the conference.
Oh, I
love
agree. I agree. It was some really good conversations with some really quality people in a really fun setting. You know, hats off to Ginger Hyde, ran a really good show, and the community really rallied behind her to make something of value for everybody. Well done.
Yeah, a lot of fun. We highly, if you're in the area, but if you're anywhere near Idaho, definitely check out RelateCon next year.
You'll enjoy it. And while we're doing host chat, I would like to send a big thank you out to everybody who's contacted me about my Poly in the Heartland tour. Again, I'm doing a road trip from Seattle through Boise, down through Albuquerque and into Texas to go boar hunting in May. And a number of you have sent letters to schedule times when we can get together and interview and talk about your experience being poly in the Heartland. So thanks a lot for those reach outs, everybody, and I'll be talking to you soon.
So we had 2 pieces of poly in the news that came up in the last week-ish. The first is CNN posted an article a week or 2 ago about basic advice on polyamory. It's called Rethinking Monogamy Today. This is CNN. This is a mainstream news outlet, and it was front and center.
Actually, I think you want to say that. This is CNN. Sorry, I couldn't help it.
My voice won't go that low.
Neither will mine, obviously. I hurt myself.
This is CNN.
This is CNN.
So the one drawback to the article is that it is couple-centric. It is assuming that everybody who does polyamory does so from an existing previously monogamous couple, which is the case some of the time, but not all the time. But it's getting reprinted a lot. And the advice in it is actually really decent, I think.
Well, you know, it is CNN.
Here's a quote from the article. In fact, consensual non-monogamy can be a healthy option for some couples, and executed thoughtfully can inject relationships with some much-needed novelty and excitement.
Ooh, new toys.
Yeah. I disagree with the premise that, the primary reason for trying polyamory is because you're bored. I don't think that's a good reason to make a major disruptive change in your relationship configuration. However, then they say, know that non-monogamy can't save a bad relationship. If you're struggling with major issues, differences, or communication problems, opening up your relationship will probably worsen those challenges, not improve them. And
just like having a baby.
And just like having a baby, yeah. And then they say, on the other hand, non-monogamy can help a good relationship, and point out that it does take effort, and point out that it requires just as much work as monogamy. And they include some educational resources. It's really a pretty good little article.
It's nice to see CNN getting on the train.
Yeah. Again, I would love to see something that doesn't assume that everyone going into polyamory is coming from a previously monogamous couple. But apart from that, I don't have too many bones to pick with it.
Well done, CNN.
The next article ran in Vice, and it's entitled, TV is finally starting to get polyamory right. And this is in reference to the series called You, Me, Her. It's now 8 episodes into a 10-episode season 2. I have to confess, I haven't seen it at all. I've been following the Poly in the News coverage. I hear that season 2 is much better than season 1 and is actually focusing on presenting polyamory in a more realistic way, as opposed to a sitcom-y way. But I think it's good coverage overall, right?
Well, it definitely falls in one of those things where, there is no bad publicity. Sure, we're going to quibble about how the lifestyle is portrayed, but that it is portrayed in mainstream media alone demonstrates a certain level of societal acceptance that wasn't there 15 or 20 years ago. There were a lot of people in the gay community that didn't like Will and Grace, that didn't like the way that Will was portrayed, and reasonably enough. I'm not quibbling and telling them that they're wrong. Having said that, we also all agree that Will and Grace helped bring about the level of gay acceptance that we're enjoying now in the U.S. So on the one hand, is it perfect? No, I'm sure there's lots of things for lots of people to quibble about. But in the point that it demonstrates an acceptance in the mass culture for a new sexual minority, well, it doesn't have to be a good show to demonstrate that.
And I want to pull out some of the stats that were quoted in the article, which I thought were really interesting. It's from New York Magazine, who reported a 2016 study of 2 nationally representative groups of single Americans found that 20% of respondents practiced some form of non-monogamy in their lifetime, and YouGov found 31% of women and 38% of men surveyed said their ideal relationship would involve multiple partners at some point. That's kind of a big deal.
That really is. It makes me very curious to track down the actual study and take a look at it, because that's kind of a sea change.
Yeah, and it's not talking about, the second survey is not talking about behavior, it's talking about this is the type of relationship that I want.
Mm-hmm.
And those numbers are really high, 31 and 38%, that's pretty high. No, it doesn't say permanently, it says at some point.
That's right. Like I said, I'd love to take a look at the actual survey. I don't know how much weight I put into it yet, but having said that, those numbers definitely catch the attention.
Our topic this week is from a listener, and I summarize her issue as, does dating poly make me poly? But she actually asked a lot of questions around this topic. So here's a fairly quick summary. She writes, I'm a 27-year-old woman dating my first polyamorous man who's 37. Side note, when I told my best friend, she said, you and Dan Savage would be so proud.
Is that because of the polyamorous part or the age difference or the married man? I'm wondering about that. Anyway.
I think it's just, I don't know, just being open to new things, maybe?
There you go. Well, that's something to be proud of.
She says he is in an open marriage, so his wife knows about me and actually has a boyfriend, parentheses, S, herself. I'm not sure if I could ever be, quote, the wife in this situation, but it works for them and is definitely working for me right now. He's the most open and honest person I've ever met, and I'm attracted to him on so many levels. Bonus, the sex/sexual chemistry is unbelievable.
That's something else to be proud of.
That is awesome sauce.
Or at least enjoy.
She continues, I guess I'm writing for some advice. I don't know if I'm getting too ahead of myself, but what happens when I'm ready to focus on a core relationship again? Do I go back to being monogamous? Am I still monogamous right now? Do I try to find a partner who accepts this lifestyle so I can continue the relationship I'm currently in? Can my boyfriend be my core partner while also having his core relationship with his wife? Also, he recently told me his wife wants to meet me, but I'm not sure how I feel about this. I think we may need some more time to build our relationship before I can extend myself to her. Any advice for a poly newbie now and in the future?
That's a big question.
So the answer to your first question about, are you getting ahead of yourself? Yes, you were getting ahead of yourself.
Well, probably.
It's good. It's completely natural and normal to think about these things. Because if you're used to thinking of monogamy tends to follow a certain path, which Aggie says calls the relationship escalator. There's a way that monogamous people tend to think about the typical path that a monogamous relationship will take. And polyamory kind of like throws that out the window. So you kind of have to start over from scratch and think about, who am I? What do I want? Who is everybody else? What do they want? What are the different paths that this might take? And which ones are cool with me and which ones are not cool with me?
Exactly. At heart, the answer to most of your questions is going to be, what do you want it to be? It's not as if there's some universal rule book that you have to conform to that says that, yes, now thou art poly, and now thou art not poly. Thou art now in a core relationship, now thou art not in a core relationship.
Although if you go in the poly forums online, they will definitely quote their poly rule book to you. The
That's
poly
right.
Police will tell you the right way to do things and that everything you're doing is wrong.
So we'll get into the details and whatnot, but really pretty much every answer is going to come back to that. What do you want it to be?
What do you want it to be? And, what do your partner/partners want it to be? And what is everybody comfortable with?
So let's take a look at these. One of them was, what happens when I'm ready to focus on a core relationship again? Well, who says you're not focusing on a core relationship right now? What exactly is a core relationship to you? What do you want it to be? Again, to go back to Aggie Says with this relationship escalator, if you're thinking that a core relationship has to be one in which you end up in a monogamous situation with commingled finances and commingled living situations and, perhaps with the badge of authenticity that marriage gives.
Co-parenting.
Since
she's younger.
Visiting each other's relatives and so on and so forth. If that's what a core relationship means, well, inherent in that definition was monogamy. So there you go. If, on the other hand, for you, a core relationship means one in which is an integral part in making you be a better version of yourself, that is answering all the needs that you have of it and helping you get through your life existence with more style, panache, and flair than you otherwise would, well, sure, it can still be a core relationship. But really, it's going to depend on what you want it to be.
Yeah, and to answer a related question, you asked, am I in a core relationship now? Can I be in a core relationship with him while he's in a core relationship with his wife? And, as Lusty Guy said, well, yeah, it's certainly possible, but it depends on the people involved, right? So I consider my relationship with Lusty Guy to be core to my life. That being said, he has a wife and a house and a kid who's now out of the house, actually, and commingled finances with her. But it was his desire and mine too to have this be a core relationship for me. And Elle was happy with that as well. So it's definitely possible, but it depends on what the people in the core relationship want. I also had this with Great Answer. He and I considered ourselves a core relationship after our first 6 months of dating, but his wife was not okay with that and didn't want us to consider ourselves a core relationship. She really wanted that primary spot for herself, which caused, no end of grief. And, we were young and we didn't really know. It was our first long-term poly. We didn't know that, we really need to make sure that everybody's on board if something's going to be considered a core relationship. And we didn't, and we kept sort of trying to convert her, and that did not go well, and ended up sort of causing the implosion, among other things, of course.
Yeah, converting people rarely goes well.
Well, especially once you're already in a relationship, and so therefore, if you're trying to convert them to a point of view that they're already having to deal with versus something theoretically, it just doesn't really work very well.
So one of your next questions was, do I go back to being monogamous? Am I still monogamous right now? Well, you get to answer that once again. If you want to call yourself monogamous, you're monogamous. Personally, and again, I'm going to say that I support everybody's right to self-identify as they will. But in my personal set of definitions, if somebody is engaged in multiple romantic relationships where everybody knows what's going on, even if they are only having one partner at that time, and their partner has other partners, they're poly in my point of view. Certainly from a biological perspective, they have to worry about the STIs, just like somebody who identifies as poly has to worry about the STIs. They have to manage their time, just like somebody who identifies as poly does. But at heart, everybody gets to self-identify as they will. So from my perspective, if you're seeing somebody who's married and whose partner is seeing people, even if that's the only person you're seeing, I would say you're non-monogamous or polyamorous or some version of that. But if you say you're monogamous in that situation because you're only seeing one person, guess what? You win.
I would second that opinion. And I would point out, as I often do, that I'm not seeing anybody else. I'm seeing only Lusty Guy at the moment, and for quite a while, I should say. I just don't really have time for another relationship at this point. Yeah. My job is really my other relationship, as I'm fond of saying. It really takes the bulk of my, time, energy, scheduling, and affections. And I self-identify as poly. I self-identify as poly when I'm not dating anyone. I self-identify as poly when I'm only dating one person. Self-identify as poly when I'm dating one person who self-identifies as monogamous. That's me. As Lusty Guy says, you get to decide. If this is new to you, you're still comfortable identifying as monogamous, who happens to be dating a poly guy, go for it. If you want to call yourself poly-curious, poly-adjacent, poly-friendly, one of those derivatives, go to. Whatever works for you.
Now this question, we're going to break from the pattern a little bit. Do I try to find a partner who accepts this lifestyle so I can continue the relationship I'm currently in? If you want to continue this current relationship and you want to find other partners, yes, you want to find a partner who accepts your lifestyle. There's no however you want to do it here. It involves consent and agency. And if you want to continue having multiple relationships, to do so from an ethical perspective requires making sure that everybody involved know what's going on and accepts it.
Yes, and I would also recommend highly that you not seek within the monogamous pool and then try to find somebody who is okay with poly. If you are going to try to date more than one person at a time, you really need to fish in the poly pool.
It
I
helps.
highly recommend that you narrow your search to people who self-identify as polyamorous, or at the very least polycurious. But if you go in the broader monogamous pool, I can guarantee that there's going to be a lot of drama along the way, even if they are open to the idea of poly, if they haven't done it before, if it's your first time and their first time.
Then go be first-timers together.
Yeah, you can be first-timers together. I'm just giving you a little warning that it's there's going to be a lot of drama. I personally would highly recommend that you fish in the poly pool and just set your OkCupid profile as polyamorous, and you say that you are seeking, people who self-identify as poly. And it's more likely that you will have a more positive experience with polyamory.
Next question. Can my boyfriend be my core partner while also having his core relationship with his wife? Yes.
I think we answered that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
As long as everybody's okay with it, your boyfriend can be your purple-haired, shiny-starred unicorn.
Yep.
It's all up to you guys.
Yes. It's, your relationship will generally be what it will be. Relationships fall to their own level, as I say. So as long as everybody is comfortable with the relationship definitions and feel they have a general grasp as to what quote unquote core relationship or anchor relationship or whatever you want to call it means, and everybody is cool and everybody's talked about it, then sure. That's what, with poly, it's DIY. It's build your own. You can do whatever you want as long as everybody is informed and consenting and has agency. Last question was about meeting his wife. And you said you weren't sure how you felt about it, that you may need a little bit more time to build your relationship with your partner before you can extend yourself to her.
Well, you're on your own pace. And if you really honestly feel like you need a little bit more time, that's okay. But I will say this. The longer you wait, the more likely it is to become a larger issue than it needs to be. And if you can meet sooner rather than later, without the boy, just you and her, in a neutral space where the two of you just try to relax and get to know each other and see, kind of in dog language, sniff each other's butts, it'll be a lot better experience than if you put it off and allow the interest on the emotional weight to accrue and make it a huge deal.
Agreed. The longer you wait, it's going to be a thing, and it will be dread and anxiety and all of this emotional weight that it doesn't really need to be there. You go at your own pace. If you're not ready, then give yourself another week or two, but don't take too long because it will build up and it will basically give your fears a chance to run amok. And it's really easy just to, quick like a Band-Aid, get it over with.
Yep. And look at it as an opportunity to be the kind of person you want to be. Go into the meeting
that's good. You're smart.
Oh, don't tell anybody. It's a secret. Go into that meeting with the expectation that you're going to be the cool, confident, neat, engaged partner that you are. Not somebody who's scared, who's worried about the impression. Just put all that out of your mind and go in committed to the notion of making this a good meeting for your partner's wife, rather than worrying about you. Put your attention on her. Relax, go, you'll be all right.
Now, there's a principle that I've embraced. I'm not saying everybody has to do this, but it's worked very well for me. I go into poly relationships with the idea that one of my goals is to improve upon the existing relationship. I tend to date men who are already in a couple for whatever reason. And so
'cause we're hot.
I think it's because you come already trained.
That might be it.
It's like the toilet seat is down, you do the dishes, you come fully trained, so I don't have to deal with that shit. I just waltz in. It's great. I love it.
Training is hot for a lot of people.
It's true. Yeah, some people like to do the training. I personally don't like to. But I go in with this idea that one of my goals is to improve the existing relationship. And I'll actually tell the wife that yes, I want my own relationship with the person that I'm dating, but I also need to know that what I'm doing is making things better for them because that makes me happy. I don't do very much BDSM anymore, I have to admit, but I still have this idea of service. I want my relationship with you to serve to improve your relationship with Elle. And that just makes me feel better. It helps with any insecurities I may have. And I find that it generally helps the wife, because for me, I date men, so it's usually the wife, to feel better and more comfortable with the relationship as well. If that works for you, great. If not, no worries. I'm not offended.
But either way, try not to make this molehill into a mountain.
Yeah.
Go into it with as much of a centered, calm, and control feeling as you can, with your attention on your partner, not yourself. In this case, your partner being the woman that you're meeting, your partner's wife, with your attention on her and remembering that you are creating the pattern that the relationship will fall into over time. So create a nice, calm, relaxed pattern.
That being said, I'm going to offer a little contrarian advice. Since it's your first time doing poly, if it's helpful for you to voice your fears and say, I was nervous about this meeting for X, Y, and Z reason, and just to get those out in the open at this meeting, I would say do it, because sometimes just saying that shit out loud, not expecting a solution, and then having her, most likely, she's going to smile and laugh and say, what?
Or, yeah, me too.
It can be a great, or yeah, I've been worried about this too for this reason. Having that moment of confidence and vulnerability with a metamor can be very fruitful. Again, just giving you ideas.
Absolutely. In the final analysis, to thine own self be true.
Yeah. And pick and choose which bits of our advice you want to take.
We certainly do.
We haven't done the tip bell in a while, and I have to say, you folks have been super generous of late. I got a list of thanks to give here.
Wow.
I know.
Ooh, and I see one of them's got my favorite. Two have got my favorite.
Yeah. So the first donation was from Spirit, who actually wrote in a little bit of feedback and thanks, a little note of thanks with the donation, which is very sweet, which I wanted to read because it was nice. Saying, love your podcast. It's helped me get out of my head, thinking about deep self-issues and growth upon a lot of the topics you share. Gives me relief and news on the growth of the world. Love you and thank you. Thank you. And we also got two $69 donations.
Yay. Well, we got to start on one this morning.
We did one 69, so we owe you another 69. So Pedro and Craig, thank you for the $69 donations.
Indeed.
We love those.
Thank you, Pedro and Craig.
Yes. And then we also had 4 new people sign up to be Playmates. 4.
Wow.
Like we must be doing something right. The first is from Blackbird, then Fernando from Uruguay.
Cool.
I thought we were blocked in Uruguay because I thought they were more conservative. So yay. Awesome.
Well,
thank you.
They've legalized cannabis, so they're letting us in.
Awesome. And then Toby and Brenda also signed up as Playmates. So thank you. We really appreciate your faith in us. I just want to acknowledge the last 2 episodes have come out late. I've got a lot of personal shit going on.
Not my fault.
It's not his fault. Last time this type of thing happened, I put the podcast on hiatus. I really didn't want to do that this time. So on the one hand, I'm happy that the episodes are coming out and you're still getting your content. But on the other hand, I'm really anal and I hate when they go out late. They're going out not dropping on Thursday morning, but now it's more like, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
But they're still coming.
But they're coming. So we really appreciate your donations to help us get these out. Well, I think that about wraps it up for today's show. We do our very best to keep this a free resource. We've helped hundreds of thousands of people navigate their introduction to polyamory and to improve their existing poly relationships. And your donations, your feedback, everything that you give and tell us helps to make this podcast better. That being said, if you want to help make the podcast better, give us feedback at polyweekly@gmail.com. Call 802-505-POLY to leave a comment on the listener comment line. We'll play it on the show unless you tell us not to, or unless the audio quality is so bad that we think people won't be able to understand your meaning. And if you want to get hold of Lusty Guy to book us for an event or to book an interview for his Poly in the Heartland series, lustyguy@polyweekly.com. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/polyweekly or on Twitter @polyweekly or @cunningminx. So with that, I look at Lusty Guy and say, and remember,
it's not all about the sex.